How many discounts does USAA Auto Insurance offer? Too many to say here. Multi-vehicle discount, safe driver discount, new vehicle discount, storage discount, legacy.
How many discounts will you stack up? Visit USAA.com/auto discounts. Restrictions apply.
With a major selection of the looks your kiddos love, starting at just $4 in the Walmart app, a new school year means a stylish new them. Who knew? Find skater skirts and Crocs that say, I'm casual but cool. Sparkly sneakers that say, it's my classroom, you're just learning in it. And preppy polos that say, I'm the teacher's pet, even if they're mommy's menace at home. Find their favorite styles starting at just $4 in the app. The Walmart you thought you knew is now new.
Adam, you forwarded me a pretty interesting email recently.
Isn't every email I forward you interesting?
Absolutely not.
No, no comment.
No.
Thanks for your support there, guys. So what about it was interesting?
Yeah, the email was a sort of heads up for customers of this company, just saying, this is what a phishing email from us would look like. Look for these telltale signs of a phishing email.
A phishing email from us? You said a phishing email from us.
Yeah, let's start over here. This email is from a company that we do business with, and instead of being promotional or anything like that, it was just a heads up for their customers to know what to look for in a phishing email. So it had just a couple of good, helpful little tips to say, check the sender email address, check for the domain, look for a couple of these little suspicious red flags here. And I thought it was a nice example of just sort of good citizenship from a corporation. Just saying, we're not going to get anything out of this, but this is how you as our customers can stay informed and protect yourselves against phishing scams.
This is a great example of a company doing the right thing. Today's guest is the story about how companies don't always do the right thing.
Indeed. Yes.
And with that, welcome to What the Hack, a show about hackers, scammers, and the people they go after. I'm Adam, cyber truth speaker.
I'm Beau, cyber magic mind swiller.
And I'm Travis, cyber alpaca spittle.
Ew.
That's disgusting. And today we hear the story of an actor turned corporate spy. Robert, welcome to our show. Really appreciate you coming on with us. I read your book. So I know you spent a lot of time in Hollywood, Malibu, and places like that. But tell us where you're coming to us from now.
Well, I'm in Malibu. I'm at my house, in my dining room. My wife is away, so therefore I can actually have the call in a place that I actually look good and the lighting is good. Normally, she's got me out in my converted tool shed, which is exactly what it sounds like, a converted tool shed, pretty rough, plywood on the walls. That's normally where I do these calls. So today you're getting the best of me.
I know you grew up in Philadelphia in a family that had an automobile business, but your real love in life was something different.
Yeah, so, my great-grandfather sold horse carriages before cars were invented, became one of the first automobile dealers in Philadelphia. My grandfather took over that dealership. My father took over that dealership. I was supposed to take over that dealership. But when I was in college, I fell in love with acting. And I really wanted to move to New York to be an actor. I didn't know anybody that had been, forget about an actor, I didn't know anybody that had ever been an artist. So it seemed crazy to me, but I finally got up the guts to do it. And of course, artists, actors, musicians need survival jobs. And who stumbles into a career as a corporate spy? But that's what happened to me.
All right, so we're going to talk about that more briefly, but that's why you're on the show today. We often look at how scammers and hackers go after us, but corporate spying is similar to other forms of hacking because they all involve social engineering. Whether it's a phishing email or a corporate spy posing as an employee to gather any information they're not supposed to have.
That's right. I mean, so this is one of those rare chances we have on the show where we get to talk to someone on the other side, a quote unquote bad guy, but not a bad guy, just someone on the hacking side of things. We don't always get to talk to that person. So this is cool.
Hopefully we'll learn how to stay safer too.
Yeah, there's that too, I guess. But so Robert, before we get to your day job as a spy, if you were looking for part-time work, why didn't you just sell cars with your dad?
Yeah. Well, look, when I graduated from UPenn in Philadelphia, I did go to work for my father, and turned out to be pretty damn ironic because the trickery of car sales just didn't sit right with me. It just didn't feel right to me, which of course, was kind of hysterical when I end up going into corporate spying, which was far more ethically challenging than car sales.
So what is, I'm just curious. This is of perennial interest to me. What kind of things do car dealers do that's so tricky?
Well, look, it's not, I'm not going to bag on car salespeople because it's all sales, right? At the end of the day, all sales is I'm going to sell you my product for as much money as I can, right? And sometimes you're selling a product that's a great product and people love to buy, like the iPhone. And sometimes you're selling a product that people don't want to buy, like the first Hyundais when they came out, right? And yet there were salespeople selling all of these products, whether they're good products or bad products, and they're trying to sell the products for as much money as they can, And so, when you're a salesperson, you learn tricks and things that you can do to try to make that happen, and a lot of that, is verbal, where you're schmoozing people, you're bullshitting people about how good the product is when maybe it's not so good and why it should cost this when maybe it shouldn't, maybe you shouldn't be charging them that. Cars, as an example, there's no set price on a vehicle. There's the manufactured suggested retail price on the window sticker. But nowadays, a buddy of mine is trying to buy a car right now, and dealers are charging way above the MSRP, which I never heard of when, in all my years.
Yep.
Right. I think sales is an honorable profession, but there is trickery involved in good sales. You're trying to sell and make as much money as you can. The more money you make for your company, the more it goes into your pocket, because most sales is commission based and commission oriented.
That really plays into every business, and certainly it's all about selling the dream, or at least getting enough people to buy into whatever it is you're trying to do. Yeah. Which is what social engineering is, which is what we talk about all the time.
Absolutely, yeah.
Well, that's also what actors do, more or less, right? Did your acting training kind of come in handy with your spying?
Yeah, so did that come up during the interview, or how'd you get a job as a spy?
Yeah, I finally got the guts to move to New York. I only knew one person in the entire, New York City, the boroughs of, the 5 boroughs. And he had this crazy job. One day he mentioned it, then he shut up right away. Like he knew he'd been told, don't tell people about this job. And I said, dude, I'm broke. I need a job. I'm desperate. And so he very reluctantly got me an interview. I went to the Upper East Side, which, as you guys know and your audience may know, is kind of the wealthiest area of Manhattan, the old money area of Manhattan. And I go doorman building, go up to the penthouse. This woman lets me in the nicest apartment I've ever seen for this job interview. She never asked me anything about my skills. She never tells me anything about the job. I leave as confused as I went in. But my buddy calls and says, you got the job, but don't get too excited because no one is able to do this job. And that was kind of the beginning of my apprenticeship as a corporate spy.
You went into this to see this woman. She knew you were an actor. You're obviously absurdly handsome, and so absurd. They go, "Oh my gosh, who is this guy? He could probably get the birds to come out of the trees and recite poetry." Was that part of the interview? Do you think that she was actually trying to see if you were the kind of person people would tell stuff to?
Well, look, she ran this small spying firm. So this is a woman in the late 80s who's running a small spying firm that spies on Wall Street companies. So, and her firm was very successful. So she really was kind of groundbreaking, because back in the day, women, were not, they were not running businesses, Wall Street related businesses. They weren't executives. And so she had started this business. It became very successful, but she only hired actors. And at first she only hired women. My buddy who got me the job, we were the first 2 men she ever hired, and she really didn't want to hire us. She only believed that women could do the kind of spying that she needed.
Now, when you say spying, what kind of spying are you talking about? Are we talking about intellectual property? What are we talking about?
Yeah. So, what we did, and we did go in person a little bit. Like we go to a bar, we go to the U.S. Open, we go to a conference. But we learned very quickly that we could get far more information using the anonymity of the good old-fashioned social engineering phone call, or what I call a ruse call, to get people inside corporations to release information that they should never tell us. Whether it was back in the day, pre-LinkedIn, nobody knew who worked at a firm, nobody knew who was in a group, nobody knew who was running the group, and most importantly, nobody knew who the rock stars were in the group, who were the top salespeople, the top traders, the top bankers, the top developers, designers, whatever the product area was. And we quickly learned that every firm has a metric that they use to rank their employees. And we would learn what those metrics were. If it was a sales team, we would get the sales number. So we could literally tell who was number one on the sales desk, who was number two on the sales desk. And as you can imagine, I'm a big football fan, and I always go back to the football analogy. When Tom Brady left the New England Patriots, I haven't seen them in a Super Bowl since, but when he went to Tampa Bay, the very next year, they won the Super Bowl, right? So that's how valuable poaching a top person from a rival can be. And corporate America is just as cutthroat and competitive as any sports league.
When you say this woman set up a company to perform this corporate espionage, was it fully legal? I guess, in other words, did she say, corporate espionage, LLC, or was it something, was there a front to that? Like, how did she present that to, say, the IRS, for instance?
I can tell now, if I go onto LinkedIn, I can find you the corporate spying firms. They never say corporate spying. They say things like this: competitive intelligence, corporate analysis, corporate research. They use all of these pseudonyms, but what they're doing often is some form of corporate espionage, right? Because they can't advertise that. So this woman's firm was, like her initials, Associates. And my firm, when I had my firm, it was, RK Research, a corporate intelligence firm. But, we were, spying. We were, doing corporate espionage, finding out whatever we could, which started with the organizational information, which was incredibly valuable in the era before LinkedIn. But then we would kind of piggyback off of that and build that out. And then we would learn other information, whether it was future plans, expansion plans, whether a firm, had a new product in the pipeline, what the product was, how they were going to price that product, who their clients were, all kinds of information, the proverbial playbook that a rival would want to know so that they could beat their competitors.
Would a corporate spy of the ilk you were go after a secret recipe, a specific business specific asset like that?
For sure. Yeah, for sure. There were a couple of lines I didn't want to cross because, obviously, and I think you guys kind of were hinting at this about whether the job was legal. And in the very beginning, the woman who hired me, we went and we sat down with an attorney, and the attorney said, look, what you're doing is in the gray, the very dark gray of legality. He basically put us on warning that we had to tread very, very lightly because it was highly possible, if not highly likely, that at some point someone was going to come after us. And of course, in the book, people do come after us. So there were a couple of things I didn't want to do. There were times I would learn secrets that I could have traded on, which of course is insider trading. And that was something I was never in a million years going to do because, even they got even Martha Stewart for that, right? Martha Stewart went to jail for insider trading. So
she did.
There were a couple of things I knew that I was never going to do. Stealing trade secrets, insider trading, those were lines I didn't want to cross.
Hey, it's Paris. I love sparkly things, right? Like stars. Duh. And thanks to Hilton and AutoCamp, I just slept under them. Picture me serving looks by the fire outside my luxurious Airstream, making s'mores with the kids, while a national park is our backdrop. The great outdoors meets Hilton hospitality. That's hot. Explore all the new ways to stay at Hilton.com. Hilton for the stay.
This episode is sponsored by Friskies, who would like to tell your cats hi. Now, if that didn't get your cat's attention, there is one thing that always does the trick. Just pour some Friskies crunchy food in the bowl and you'll hear those paws come running. Works every time. With so many Friskies choices, you can always bring your cats running from their secret napping spots. There's always more to explore. See for yourself at Friskies.com or visit your local store.
I want to go back for a minute, okay? So you're a young actor. You had a few gigs. Then you moved to New York. And all of a sudden you take a job as a spy? I mean, other than your friend's reference, why did you even interview to become a spy?
Well, when you first get to New York City, the first two things you got to get is a place to live and a job, right? So the job was kind of the priority.
Gotcha.
I had been acting in Philadelphia. I had done a lot of shows at Penn. And then while I was working for my dad at the car dealership, I got hired to be the lead in a music video for a band called the Hooters, they were actually a big band in the mid-'80s.
Yeah,
and
I remember them.
And the video was directed, believe it or not, by a young David Fincher.
So for those of our listeners who may not recognize the name David Fincher, he's like a serious director.
Yeah.
He directed movies like Seven, The Social Network,
Fight Club.
Right? Who, of
Wow.
course, that break, basically, my father was kind of very upset that I was leaving the business. And then all of a sudden, when they had a world premiere of the video on MTV, and back in the day, they had a world premiere. They advertised it. And then, Tuesday at 8 p.m., the world premiere video from the Hooters, it played. And then, of course, it played nonstop. And when my father saw me in that video, and I'm in, almost every frame of that, 4-minute video, all of a sudden he began to think, wow, maybe there is something in this. He still didn't want me to go. But shortly thereafter, I was booking big parts in big shows. I starred opposite James Gandolfini in a play. I starred opposite Calista Flockhart in a play.
Okay, so you were doing some real acting, though.
Yeah. I'm a member of the Actors Studio to this day.
So you've done some cool stuff in acting. Certainly the book tells some great stories. What do you think is like the coolest thing that happened to you during your acting career?
I think there's a certain like Forrest Gump element to the book where I have these encounters with really famous people at critical moments in not just my life, but also in their lives. And so one of the craziest stories is O.J. Simpson, but the story that people ask me the most about is Paul Newman, because everybody loves Paul Newman, and he was such an amazing actor and an incredible human being. And so when I was a young guy and I became a member of the Actors Studio, I got cast in a play in the Actors Studio, and we were performing it, and the show was a big success. And one night, all of a sudden backstage, there's this beautiful man with eyes that were so piercing blue I couldn't even look him in the face. And he says, hey, nice job, kid. Way to go. Good work. And then turned around and walked out. Like it was literally a 10-second encounter. But, as you can imagine, Paul Newman saying something nice about your acting was a pretty big deal.
Yeah.
And I can't remember. It was a couple days later, I come home and, I was with my brother, was visiting, and, there was a message on the answering machine. And of course, this is an answering machine where there was a tape in it, and you hit play and it rewound and you waited for it to rewind, and then it played. And it was Joanne Woodward. And she was saying, that she had been there that night too, and that she and Paul had loved my work. They were doing a reading at their apartment, and they'd love for me to come up. It was on a Sunday. And so, I was excited, but I was also a little disappointed because, I thought, when they said reading, I thought they were going to ask me to read, but instead it was a reading where I just assumed I was going to come and listen to somebody else read.
Right.
But when I showed up at their apartment, which apartment does not do justice, they live on Museum Mile on Fifth Avenue, right across from Central Park. The nicest building you could ever imagine. Of course, multiple doormen. I go up, the door opens, and I come into this foyer where there's all of this incredible artwork on the walls. And all of a sudden I realize that it's all original pieces, it's, Manet and Monet and Van Gogh. And so, they're already two of the most famous human beings on the planet. And now they have all of this priceless art. And Joanne Woodward welcomes me and ushers me in. She's Southern, she's incredibly kind, and brings me in and sits me down and hands me a script and says, we're going to read this film script. You're the lead in the film script. It's about a race car driver. Paul Newman says, that's supposed to be my part. Joanne Woodward says, yeah, you're too old now. And he's sitting on a chaise lounge. By the way, it's Sunday at 11:30 a.m. He's sitting on a chaise lounge with a 6-pack of beer at his feet. He's drinking beer the whole time we're doing this reading. And I'm doing this reading of this, potential movie, playing the race car driver with Paul Newman sitting there watching me drinking beer. So it was a little intimidating, but they were really wonderful people.
That didn't happen to become Days of Thunder with Tom Cruise, did it?
I think indeed it did.
I was up for that movie too, Robert.
Beau was in the pit crew in that movie. I don't know when you saw it, but yeah, he was there. So
that is actually much more. That's probably what I would get cast for. It was sad but true.
So you're an actor. You're just beginning to get your feet wet in the world of corporate espionage. What's the first tactic you learned how to use?
That's a great question. The people that trained me and trained my buddy, and the book, his name is Pax, they were women, again, because the woman who had the firm thought only women could do the job. So we were learning originally from women. And the women had ploys that they used, which were incredibly effective, where they were basically playing put-upon assistant, calling another put-upon assistant. And they would call and they go, oh, my boss is so horrible. He's so mean. He yells at me. He treats me so poorly. I'm going to lose my job if I don't get this information. And to my shock, assistants on the other end of the phone would go, oh my God, it's okay. Don't panic. I mean, these women would even break out the tears and start crying sometimes. And to my shock, the assistants on the other end of the line would go, hey, don't worry that you're not going to lose your job. I'm going to help you. What do you need? Let me get it for you. I couldn't believe it. Well, of course, when we would try to use that ploy, it was completely unsuccessful because we weren't assistants. And back in the day, and we're talking, mainly 90s, early 2000s, most assistants were still women. So we had to learn different ploys that played to our strengths, first of all, by just being men. And what I learned, again, shocking, was that I would go and be an executive. I would portray myself as an executive within the company that I was calling. And I would go bro to bro. And to my great shock, I found senior executives to be far easier to get information from than the assistants and receptionists.
Wow.
Because I guess the senior executives didn't think that they were going to get fired by giving you information.
Well, I think so, but I think I was also playing to their ego a little bit. I would always call, I would go, okay, well, look, I think this guy is going to have the information I want. He's a vice president of this. I'm going to call and pretend I'm an executive vice president, in the, and I run compliance for Europe, and I would put on an accent, Oh, this is Gerhard calling from the office in Frankfurt. We have the European Union regulators here and we need some information from the States. Well, the vice president would go, oh my God, I got the EVP of compliance for all of Europe on the phone. Hey, Gerhard, what's going on, buddy? Hey, well, how can I help? Well, you got a problem with the regulators? Sure. What do you need?
So it was an ego play.
Totally ego play and using the corporate hierarchy as a cudgel.
Well, that'll do it, especially the magic word we've learned anywhere is compliance. The minute you get a call from compliance, your blood runs cold, the hair on the back of your neck starts trying to figure out a way to get off the back of your neck. So, yeah.
That's right. Yeah, that's right. When we realize that, when we go, oh my God, everyone is afraid of compliance. They're the corporate version of Orwell's thought police. And you do not want to be on the wrong side of the compliance guys and, now compliance guys and gals. And so what do I need to do to get this guy off my back and make him happy so that he leaves me alone and I never pick up the phone and hear from compliance again?
Okay. So say compliance doesn't work. What's the next method?
Well, compliance always worked. And the next,
okay.
Yeah.
There you go. So you don't always do that.
Yeah.
And the next method would have been not to throw the ploy in the trash, but to just find somebody else. Because look, did I get the information from every single person I called? No. Did I get the information that my client wanted at every firm? Yes, I did. Or let me just say 99.9999% of the time, whatever the information my clients wanted, I got that information. I didn't get it every time, but eventually I'd find somebody in the firm that would get that information for me or knew that information. And one of the tricks we learned pretty quickly was that when you ran into a tough customer, somebody that wasn't going to give you the information, we had a technique for putting them to sleep. That's what we called it. And so the person would be yelling and screaming, I don't believe you are who you say you are, and blah, blah. Okay, calm down. Look, do you want me to send you an email? I will send you an email. It will explain exactly what I'm doing. Yes, I want you to send me an email. I want you to send me an email right now, and I want it to come from the company email address. Okay, no problem. I will have it to you within an hour. It will explain. Okay. Well, look, I'm sorry. I don't mean to get so upset, but I just have to know this is real. And I need it. No, I will have an email to you within an hour. Worst case scenario, I'll have it to you by the end of the day. It'll explain. Okay. And they start calming down. You say, and you know what? I got a couple other fires I got to put out here. I guarantee you, if I can't get it to you by the end of the day, I'll have it to you first thing in the morning when you come to work. You'll have it. It'll explain everything. Okay, sure. Look, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to get so upset, but now what have I done? I put them to sleep so that they don't warn anybody else in the company, because now they're waiting for an email that's never going to come. But I have bought myself the rest of the day to get the information that my client wants.
Gotcha. So it's not so much that you intend to get the information from them. They're kind of a dead end. You just calm them down so they don't pick up the phone, call someone else in the company and go, hey guys, be on the lookout. There's somebody trying to steal information from us.
Yeah, there's somebody phishing us, and now let's say they call the compliance department or the legal department or human resources, and now that the person that runs that group is going to send a company-wide email out saying, look, somebody's phishing us, somebody's rusing us, somebody's scamming us. Don't talk to anybody for any reason whatsoever. Well, we do not want that email going out, because that's going to make our job next to impossible.
Sounds a lot like how modern day scammers and online criminals work with all kinds of people. I mean, so are you familiar with how hackers work today in getting information from corporations?
Sure.
So has it, let me ask you this. It sounds like what you were doing back in the day was an art form, and with a toolkit, but an art form. And nowadays, do you think it is, or has it changed a little bit? Has that game changed with LinkedIn being open source kind of place to go and all that?
Yeah, look, it has for sure. But one of the things that we learned in doing this job for a lot of years is that whenever technology would get introduced, we would think, oh my gosh, that's the end of corporate spying. Corporate spying is dead. It's over. And then all of a sudden we would learn that technology actually helped us, that technology actually made it easier for us to extract more and more valuable information from corporations. So LinkedIn, for example, look, I'm here to tell you that LinkedIn is missing a third of major executives are not on LinkedIn. LinkedIn cannot tell you who the rock stars are. He cannot tell you, a lot of times LinkedIn isn't up to date. They're dead people on LinkedIn. It doesn't have people's current titles on LinkedIn. So LinkedIn does not answer all the questions that major corporations want to know about their top rivals. And then, of course, it also doesn't have kind of all of that added information about, what is a firm up to, who their clients are, what do they pay their clients, or what do their clients pay them? All of that information, which is, again, really, really valuable for a company to know about their competitors.
So some of the tactics you're talking about, we're not talking about spies through hacking, getting into mainframe computers, things that we see in movies. We're talking about fairly straightforward things that just require someone being very suave, persistent, a bit sophisticated, and really good at what they do, right?
Yeah, except that nowadays, almost all hacking uses some form of social engineering, again, what I call rusing, to assist in that procedure, right? So let's just talk about ransomware attacks, right? When we talk about these ransomware gangs, indeed they are gangs, right? And they have, a small number, depend on the gang, of course, but they have people that it's kind of like a Mission Impossible, where they have one person that's the social engineer. The social engineer goes in first. The social engineer learns things, how a network is set up, how they handle encryption, how they do this, how they do that by having conversations. That information is then funneled to the hacker, which makes the hacking that much easier. Then once the hacking is done, there's somebody that's kind of the financial instruments expert, and he's the one or she's the one that makes sure that they can get paid, in Bitcoin or however they choose to get paid in a way that it cannot be tracked back, right? So each person has a part of that ransomware attack mission, and the social engineer is part of that equation.
So who was not identifying the individuals, but the people who were part of your crew, and especially when you teamed up with the bigger guys in London and New York, what did each person in your crew do?
Well, look, everybody had a different skill set. For example, all the spies I worked with, everybody had a go-to accent, and I never heard anyone have the same go-to accent. This one woman, it was the Irish. For me, it was the German. For somebody else, it was English, and they would utilize these accents to portray themselves as people, because most corporations now have offices in London, in Dublin, in Frankfurt, in Tokyo, in Dallas, in Charlotte, and all over the world. So you could be from anywhere and still be a major executive. A lot of times people will recognize the name. They'll go, "Oh, it's Gerhard Mannheim in the Frankfurt office. He runs compliance for all of Europe." But they haven't spoken to Gerhard, or maybe they heard him on a conference call. A lot of times what I would do is I would Google somebody, or I would call their phone number back in the day, and I would hear their outgoing voice message so that I could imitate their voice. So I would hear, "As this is Gerhard. I am not here right now. Please leave a message," whatever. And I go, "Oh, I can do that accent. I can, So obviously, as actors, that gave us a real leg up, because when you think about it, if somebody sounds, like who's thinking that somebody's calling them and putting on a German accent or putting on an Irish accent, right? It's ludicrous, and that's one of the things, again, we learned, is that the crazier the ploy, the crazier the ruse, the more believable it became.
Have you ever been rused?
Well, it's funny. I just did a spot, a segment for something which I won't go into, but I was basically saying there was recently this Italian man was arrested and charged with wire fraud because he was stealing the unpublished manuscripts of famous authors. And he created
Yes.
You saw that, right? He created these slightly altered but official looking email addresses, and he got literary agents, publishing house editors, international book contest judges to all fall victim and send him the unpublished books of famous authors like Margaret Atwood, who wrote The Handmaid's Tale. Now, when I heard that, I'm like, wait a second. Literary people are supposed to be super smart. Like, they all went to Ivy League schools. They're like the smartest people in the proverbial room. If they can be phished and scammed, all of us can be phished and scammed, including me. And I see, look, we all get phishing, hacking, scamming, duping requests every day, right? Whether it's a phone call, whether it's a text, whether it's an email, and some of them are pretty damn good. And I always tell people, the main thing to do when you get those is, I have a 30-second rule. I don't click on anything. I don't forward anything. I don't do anything until I look at something for 30 seconds. And I make sure that if it's funky, I don't do anything. I don't touch it. I'll put the device down and walk away and think about it. And then I go back and I study it. And that's when you all of a sudden realize, that it's fake.
Yeah, I used to work from publishing. So yes, and I may resemble your comment about people, all of us having gone to Ivy League schools, but the fact of the matter is, we're some of the dumbest people on earth. And
well, I'm so excited to hear you finally say that. No,
well, we'll fall. I mean, the last thing on earth anyone who's had their nose in a book most of their life is thinking is there a con man on the other side of a request? They just think, "Oh, I'm going to do something for my author," or "I'm going to do something for myself." So my first job in publishing was at a top tier publisher, literary publisher, but also popular books. Think big cookbooks, big spy books, you name it. They had big books. And my boss also worked part-time sideways for a very big magazine editor. And that magazine editor gave me $5,000 extra a year to do one thing and one thing only, which was get manuscripts that had not yet been published by authors he or she was interested in. Was I a spy?
Yes. Well, that was corporate espionage. That was corporate espionage for sure.
Yes. Well, it was editorial espionage.
You were helping her to steal these theoretically great books from your employer.
Well, only to know that they existed and to be able to read them quickly. The other thing that I was helping them do, that was it. That was all that ever happened. But the other thing that I would sometimes get the assignment. Bob is writing a book. Bob was famous. Bob's brother, Bill, is writing a book on the same subject. Bob and Bill hated each other. Can you please find out what Bob's book is? And so that would be my job. Now, just so that this person could tell Bill who hated Bob and at Michael's and score some points. So my question, so I was spying, but But it was so dumb. It was so dumb what we were spying on.
Well, maybe, but you can see, and it's funny, that exact scenario you just told me about is so common in the corporate world. They want to know what their, XYZ, a lot of times executives. So in other words, let's say they hate this guy at their rival firm. He's an EVP. They had both been at the same firm, but he got the big job. And now this guy left to go to another firm. And he's like, I want to screw this guy. I want to find out everything I can on him, and I'm going to take him down. I want to know who his top people are because I'm going to steal them. I want to know who his top clients are. I'm going to get his clients. So that kind of, animosity that you brought up there, that is really, really true across the board.
Well, can I tell you that usually what I would do is go to Bob or Bill's assistant and say, Doohickey, that was my boss, Doohickey has given me the corporate card, and I'm supposed to get all the information I can about Bill and or Bob. We can drink all night. You want to do it?
Oh.
And then at the end of the night, I'd be like, can you just tell me what it is so I can tell Doohickey what it is? And they'd tell me, and that would be the end of it.
You're officially a spy now because you got drinks out of it too, right? You know what I mean? It's not just intelligence. You got to get some alcohol as well. So congratulations, you're officially a corporate spy.
Nice. I'm going to be able to tell a good story to my kids at Thanksgiving. I'm really happy, Robert, that I now know that I was a spy. Am I a good spy or a bad spy, or are all spies the same?
All spies are the same, and I'm going to send you. It's a little badge. It says corporate spy. You can wear it out in public. It's just a good thing to have. Get you into some places,
or really kicked out hard.
And you're also saying that basically, unless cocktails are involved, you're not an official corporate spy, correct?
Yeah, I mean, look, James Bond. Come on, you know what I mean? If James Bond said, "I don't drink," you know what I mean?
Oh, forget it. Yeah.
I mean,
it's got to be shaken, not stirred. So
yeah, I mean, if he was a teetotaler, would any of us be watching? No.
Before you mentioned what it takes to be a good spy versus a bad spy, and I would have to say that I would imagine a bad spy is one that gets caught. Did you ever get caught? And actually, the same question goes to Beau, for that matter.
Yeah, well, look, I think that most of the people that tried to do this job, they found out pretty quickly that they couldn't do it. There weren't too many people that were able to do it and then stopped doing it. It was like literally you learned within an hour that you were not cut out for this job. In terms of me, did I get caught? Look, I had a lot of close calls for sure. And as I said earlier, there were plenty of times where I got busted. That's what we called it. I got busted on a call where somebody said, I'm not buying what you're selling. I don't believe you. I'm not giving you any information. And then as I discussed earlier, I would put them to sleep so that I could find somebody else within the corporation that would give me the information that I wanted.
So at any point today, they would say like, hey, you're not really Gerhard.
Oh, man, yeah, of course. Yeah, of course. Now the Gerhard one was pretty foolproof. I mean, that was pretty, I like to say, how many times people told Gerhard 9? With the only thing with Gerhard that got me once, and it's funny, I forgot about this story, is so I'm calling somebody in, New York to get some information, and I'm pretending I'm Gerhard or whatever the German guy I'm pretending to be. The guy's name could have been, Hans or whatever. And I'm doing that, and all of a sudden the person I get on the phone starts speaking German.
Guten Tag, wie geht's?
And I can speak German. I did learn German in high school and college. So, I'm proficient, but I'm not fluent. But if I'm saying I'm this German guy in Germany, I would be fluent. So what I had to do was very quickly, say 1 or 2 sentences in German and basically find a way to switch into English, And I did that and it worked and it was fine because Germans, of course, are very proud of the fact that they speak flawless English. So they are usually they're pretty quick to switch over to English. If I'd had a French speaker on the phone and I had been doing the same ploy pretending I was French, I would have been screwed.
Answer your question, Travis. I never got caught. Nope.
This episode is brought to you by Nespresso Virtual Coffee Machines. Ready to enjoy the bold flavors of barista-quality Nespresso iced coffee at home? Simply fill a glass with ice and press the brew button on your virtual pop machine to enjoy rich double espressos roasted to stand up even when chilled. Refreshingly bold iced coffee. Refreshingly easy to make at home. Visit Nespresso.com to shop now.
Hey, this is Bill Simmons from the Bill Simmons Podcast, here to help you make the most of your summer with Michelob Ultra, a superior light beer worth playing for. Play for it with the guys when you're competing to see who can sink more birdies on the golf course, because winning tastes even better with Ultra on the line. Play for Ultra. Fill your fridge with Michelob Ultra this summer. Enjoy responsibly. Copyright 2025 Anheuser-Busch Michelob Ultra Light Beer, St. Louis, Missouri.
We know the spying is still going on, and social engineering obviously does not stop at corporations. It's part of just about every scam you can imagine. So for our listeners, you mentioned the 30-second pause rule earlier. I think that's a really great idea. We constantly tell our listeners to go slow, since a lot of scammers kind of try to get you to, act as quickly as possible before thinking. What are some other red flags that someone, either at a corporation or just if they're getting a scam call out of the blue, that should tip them off immediately that someone is not really on the up and up?
Well, I think number one, you just said it. It's an emergency. It's an emergency. You must do this right now. You got to click on this right now. You've been hacked. Your money's going to disappear. Your house is going to burn down. Whatever it is, it's an emergency. So that's the first thing. There's also an element of somebody trying to be your friend, right? Somebody trying to be your friend. I'm doing you a favor here. I'm helping you out. I figured this thing out. There's this problem, whatever. So that there's that kind of thing where somebody's trying to be your friend. I always say, it's like beware of Greeks bearing gifts, right? That old quote.
You called it the Ben Franklin rule. Could you elaborate on that in the book?
Yeah. So basically, there's this idea that, if I do you a favor, what we think, this is what we think. If I do you a favor, you're more likely to do me a favor. But the Benjamin Franklin effect is a little different, which is that if I get you to do me a favor, I've now made it more likely that you'll do me another favor and another favor and another favor. Because somehow I've tricked you into believing that I am a good person and I am worthy of this and that you need to do this because either I'm more important than you or because I'm making you feel important by you helping me. But that's what the Benjamin Franklin effect is. It's very counterintuitive.
But it's sort of like friendship. Like I do stuff for my friends all the time and they do stuff for me. The only difference is it's not transactional.
Right.
And you've known them for a while.
Oh, so this is an automatic. You just met them and, let me help you to the car. Let me help you with this. Let me help you meet that guy. Let me help you do this. Yeah. That sounds more like a sociopath.
So we have move slowly and be standoffish. Anything else?
That sounds like you, Travis.
Exactly. Yeah. I'm feeling pretty good right now. Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
One of the rules of thumb we always talk about in the show is if anyone ever contacts you and asks you to authenticate yourself, hang up. Right? Because you didn't initiate the call. Well, it's the same thing for a company. If someone calls you and asks you to authenticate the company or something going on in the company, regardless of who they say they are.
Right.
I guess your advice would be get their information, call them back, right?
Well, remember the quote that Reagan had, with the nuclear arms with the Soviet Union, trust but verify, right? Wasn't that Reagan?
Yeah.
Trust but verify. Forget trust. Forget it. Just verify. So the idea that I'm going to trust that you are who you say you are, no. Verify. Don't have any hesitation to make sure that you verify everybody that you're talking to about because we all get calls all the time and some of them might be legit. Hey, this is American Express. Your card has been hacked. Well, how do you know it's American Express? You got to verify it's American Express. You know what I mean? And so in those situations, I say, hey, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to hang up and I'm going to call the number on the back of my card and I'm going to start over. And you know what they say? They say, hey, that's a good thing to do. No problem. Go ahead and do that. Because I don't know that's correct, that it's American Express calling me or, whoever is calling you. So I think the verification, always verify.
And the other thing is, if someone comes at you with a red hot potato, just don't go for it. Because the fact of the matter is, if there's something important that you need to do, they're going to get back to you the next day and the day after that and the day after that. And no one ever died by not paying a bill when it was due.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Obviously, I've written this book, so I've outed myself as a spy. And now I've switched over, from proverbial offense to defense. And now I speak at conferences and on podcasts like this, trying to clue people in as to, what spies and hackers and scammers, what are the tricks that they're using to get people to do things and corporations to do things that they shouldn't do.
Robert, listen, this was great. We truly appreciate you taking time to talk to us. Your book is great fun. The book is called Ruse. And where can people get it?
I always tell people just go to my website. It's just my name, Robert Kerbeck, KERBECK.com. You can buy books from wherever you like to buy books from. And you can also see the trailer for Ruse, because Ruse is being adapted into a TV series.
Oh, very cool.
Oh, wow.
All right.
Yeah.
So now we're with somebody who's now going to be an even more famous TV star.
I don't think they're going to have me act in it. Fortunately for me, I don't want to ruin my own show.
And now it's time for a tinfoil swan.
Our paranoid takeaway to keep you safe online.
So what is it this week, Travis? What is bothering you?
Way too much, admittedly. Yeah, I'm in the process of buying a house and we're getting ready for the big move.
Ugh, worst.
This is so not a fun time.
Not at all. So there are a lot of moving parts, but one thing that's really stood out to me during this entire process was that the moment we applied for a mortgage, my wife's phone started ringing off the hook with calls from mortgage brokers.
Welcome to the real world. I mean, when you apply for a mortgage, the three major credit reporting agencies mark it as what's called a trigger lead, meaning you're a prospective customer or a mark or a target.
But yeah, I mean, or chum in the water. However, you do not have to keep getting those calls.
That's right. I mean, you can block those at optoutprescreen.com and get on the National Do Not Call Registry.
Yeah, and that's probably why I haven't gotten any of these calls, but my wife has gotten hundreds. The larger issue that's related to it is what we just spoke about with Robert, in that moving in general opens you up to a whole slew of scams, specifically social engineering scams.
100%. And if you're shopping around for a mortgage, you need to give each of them your social security number, your personal information. It's like a smorgasbord for identity thieves.
And it's not just mortgage brokers. I mean, we recently moved to Nashville, and as soon as we filled out the change of address form, we started getting mountains of junk mail for contractors, home repair, you name it. The U.S. Postal Service does the same thing that the credit reporting agencies do with trigger leads.
Some of that can be useful, though. I've gotten some good deals on repairs to my house for direct mail campaigns. I am also, as you all know, a fan of advertising. Because it's so targeted these days, it pretty much usually sends me something I need.
Yeah, but as we've seen many times before, it's really easy to make a postcard just look like it's from a legitimate business, or to make a website making it look like it's from a legitimate mortgage broker when it's in fact just a big old scam.
Sure.
And when you're moving, you're usually verklempt. I mean, you're overwhelmed, right? You look for the best prices so you can save money when possible.
Yep, which makes us the perfect target for scammers.
So if you're moving, what should you do?
Don't move, just stay put. No, it's easier than done, but go slow. I mean, on all of it, because you have a lot to do, but you just have to, don't allow yourself to be rushed. Just move her outside. There's this, there's that. Everyone wants to get paid right now. Too bad. Go slow. There's always a lot going on over the course of a move, but there's a lot of money changing hands too. Take the time to check reviews. Make sure that the businesses you're dealing with are for real and not poorly reviewed.
Read every document before you sign it. Look, there's a lot of paperwork. Someone dishonest can just sneak in a few clauses here and there, and it can cost you a fortune.
Right. And if you're moving with your spouse or partner, just consider dividing the labor and make it one person's job to do the vetting and research. Or you can ask a friend or relative to help with some. If it gets them out of helping with the actual move itself, they might be more willing.
The stress of moving can be overwhelming, but it's temporary. The stress of getting scammed while moving can last for years. So above all, just be careful.
And that is our tinfoil swan.
What the Hack with Adam Levin is a production of Loud Tree Media, produced by Andrew Stephen and Travis Taylor. Our executive producers are Beau Friedlander and Adam Levin. That's me. You can find us online at adamlevin.com and Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook at Adam K. Levin. Come back next week
and rate and review. It really helps people find the show.
behind every empire are the people history tried to forget. Lost Roman Heroes tells the stories of the remarkable characters who shaped Rome from its mythical beginnings to its final fall.
Each episode blends armchair storytelling, sharp historical insight, and a bit of humor to bring these lost figures to life. From generals to scientists, from rebels to empresses, from priests to politicians, these lost Roman heroes have one thing in common.
They stood up for civilization when the bad guys threatened, and in doing so, they changed the course of human history. If you're into history that's vivid, surprising, and deeply human, this show's for you.
Behind every great meal is a person with a story to tell. Hear them on Culinary Characters Unlocked, the podcast that reveals the lives behind the food. Hosted by me, David Page, Emmy Award-winning journalist and creator of Diners, Drive-Ins, and Dives, as I talk with everyone from culinary legends to mom-and-pop standouts about the creativity, grit, and passion that shape the food we love. Follow Culinary Characters Unlocked on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts.